Cleopatra was not born into luxury. She was born into a war zone, with silk curtains. The Ptolemaic dynasty, her family, had ruled Egypt for centuries. But it was not love that kept them on the throne. It was murder. Brothers killed sisters, mothers poisoned sons, daughters betrayed fathers. And through it all, the palace corridors whispered one lesson: trust no one. Cleopatra listened, watched, studied. While her siblings fought for power with knives, Cleopatra armed herself with something far more dangerous: languages, rhetoric, philosophy. She was the first Ptolemy in 300 years to actually learn Egyptian. To her people, this meant she wasn't just a ruler. She was Pharaoh reborn. Imagine her mind: every brother a threat, every sister a rival, every banquet a trap. To survive, she learned to bend before breaking, to charm before striking, to smile before she killed. This was Cleopatra's childhood, not fairy tales, but lessons in blood. And in that blood-soaked palace, a queen was born. The crown of Egypt is heavy, and in Cleopatra's hands, it slipped. At just 18, her brother's allies forced her out, exiled, stripped of power. She wasn't the first Ptolemy to be betrayed. She wouldn't be the last. But Cleopatra was different. She didn't beg. She didn't weep. She calculated. Every night in exile, she studied languages, trade, politics, the art of persuasion. She sharpened her mind, like a dagger hidden in silk. Her brother Ptolemy XIII, a boy king surrounded by greedy advisors, turned the throne into a circus of incompetence. The people whispered, the gods watched, and across the sea, Rome was coming. Cleopatra knew. If she wanted Egypt back, she would need more than loyal friends or family. She would need to gamble with empires. And when Rome landed on her shores, the exiled queen would make her move. Rome had come to Egypt, not as friends, as arbiters of her family's war. Julius Caesar, 52 years old, battle-hardened, already reshaping Rome into his own image. And Cleopatra, 21. Exiled, outnumbered, surrounded by enemies. So she gambled, not with armies, not with gold, but with herself. They smuggled her past her brother's guards, hidden inside a rolled carpet. When she stood before Caesar, she did not beg. She dazzled. She made herself the solution to his problem, a queen without a throne, and a general who needed Egypt's wealth to fuel his wars. It was not love, not yet. It was survival, a transaction written in glances, sealed in ambition. And in that moment, Cleopatra bound her fate to Rome's greatest gambler, not knowing that one day she would watch him bleed on the Senate floor. War consumed Alexandria, brother against sister, Rome against Egypt. But Cleopatra did not panic. She observed. To her, Caesar was not just an ally. He was a study. She saw how he thought, how he gambled, how he turned every setback into a snare for his enemies. The war was brutal, the great library, lost to flames. But Cleopatra? She saw opportunity in ruins. For every Roman casualty, Egypt bled more. Yet she learned Caesar's truth. Power was not about preservation. It was about control, even if it meant burning the world to hold it. Her brother drowned in the Nile while trying to escape from Caesar, his crown slipping beneath the waters. Cleopatra emerged victorious, but not alone. She had bound herself to Rome's strongest man, and Rome never gave without taking. In Caesar, she found a partner. In Caesar, she found her reflection, but reflections can shatter. Cleopatra stepped into Rome, not as a guest, but as a storm. She came with Caesar, bearing their son. To the Romans, she was a scandal, an Eastern queen in their sacred city, proud, unapologetic. They called her foreign, dangerous, a seductress draped in gold. But she did not bend. Rome's elite saw only a woman out of place. Cleopatra saw something else. The Senate divided. The people restless. The Republic cracking. And she understood. Rome was not so different from Egypt. A kingdom waiting for the right hands. But alliances breed suspicion. And suspicion in Rome was fatal. Cleopatra brought Caesar power. But she also brought him envy. And envy sharpened knives. Cleopatra had entered Rome as a queen, but Rome had no queens, only enemies. March 15th, the Ides, a day the priests warned Caesar to beware. He laughed, as he always did, but not everyone smiled. For Rome had decided, no king, no crown, and no Cleopatra. In the Senate house the knives fell, first one, then another, and another. Caesar fought, but the crowd of blades was endless. Friends, enemies, even Brutus. 23 wounds, and then silence. Rome rejoiced. The tyrant was dead. The Republic, they said, was saved. Caesar's supporters were outraged, but across the river, a queen wept. For Cleopatra, it was more than grief. All their plans were shattered. Her protector was gone. Her son, suddenly, became a threat. The men who killed Caesar spoke of restoring the Republic. But she knew better. Rome has become hostile to her and her son. She quickly planned her escape. She had come to Rome as a queen. She left as a fugitive, but not defeated. Not yet. She left Rome in silence. Her lover dead, her child in danger. But in Egypt she was still queen. The boy, Caesarion, son of Julius Caesar. To Egyptians, a living god. To Romans, a living threat. She knew what must be done. Egypt must be strong, her rule unquestioned, her son untouchable. So she ruled with iron wrapped in silk. Cleopatra was no longer the girl who once smuggled herself in a rug. She was a monarch sharpened by betrayal. Rome had shown her what survival meant, and she would not forget. While Cleopatra ruled in Egypt, Rome tore itself apart. Antony, Octavian, Brutus, Cassius, all claimed Caesar's legacy. All claimed Rome. And Cleopatra watched. She knew the storm was coming. Rome was at war with itself. And soon, it would come for her. Rome was burning in civil war. Octavian in the west, Mark Antony in the east. And Cleopatra knew she must choose. She did not arrive like a petitioner. She arrived like a goddess, draped in gold, perfumed in myrrh, sailing as Aphrodite reborn. Mark Antony, the soldier, the conqueror, the man who drank with legions, was undone in an instant. For Cleopatra was not just a queen. She was a weapon. Did she love him? Perhaps. But more than love, she needed him. Rome had murdered her first protector. Now she would bind herself to its greatest general. Together, they would shake empires. Together, they would challenge Octavian. But beneath the feasts, the laughter, the seduction, a truth lingered. Cleopatra was not simply saving Egypt. She was playing for Rome itself. For a time, they ruled like gods. Cleopatra, queen of Egypt. Antony, master of the East. They proclaimed a dream, a dynasty to unite East and West. Rome and Egypt reborn as one. But in Rome, the whispers began. Octavian spreads his propaganda.
Antony has betrayed us. He kneels before a foreign queen. He would crown her children over Rome itself.
Cleopatra was no longer seen as a queen. Octavian painted her up as the villain of Rome's imagination. A seducer, a usurper, a threat to the Republic's soul. The stage was set, a war not just of armies, but of symbols. Rome's stern virtue against Egypt's gilded splendor. And at the heart of it, one woman, one queen. It came to this, the year 31 BC, at Actium. Octavian's fleet, led by Agrippa, against Antony and Cleopatra's armada. For Antony, it was Rome against Rome, brother against brother, a civil war in all but name. For Cleopatra, it was everything. Her throne, her children, her survival. The fighting took place in the sea, the Battle of Actium. Antony had bigger ships and more equipped, but his navy lacked experience. Octavian, on the other hand, had smaller but very maneuverable ships, and he had more experienced naval troops. The fighting raged for hours. Strategy betrayed Antony. Agrippa's navy cut off his supply lines to Antony's navy. But the devastating blow to Antony's forces came when one of Antony's former generals delivered his battle plan to Octavian. His ships grew desperate, outmatched by Octavian's fleet, surrounded, outflanked. Then came the signal, Cleopatra's fleet retreating. Funneling through Octavian's blockade, Cleopatra flees, and in that moment, the unthinkable. Antony abandoned the battle as well. He left his men and followed her into the open sea. The war was over. Not in Rome, not in Egypt, but on these waters, and in their escape, began their end. After Actium, there was no more illusion, no more empire, no more hope. Antony returned, but not as a general. He returned as a man, defeated. He drank. He raged. He brooded in silence, the once golden hero of Rome, now drowning in shame. And Cleopatra, she played her last game, not with armies, but with whispers, with survival. She sent envoys to Octavian, gifts, promises, even her crown, all while Antony's pride crumbled in front of her. He began to wonder, was she still his queen, or had she already betrayed him to save herself? In Alexandria, love and paranoia twisted together. Every glance, every word, a test of loyalty. But no loyalty could stop what was coming. Octavian was marching east. The Lion of Rome would not be denied. And so the trap closed. Not with daggers in the Senate, not with war cries at Actium, but with silence and inevitability. Octavian was close. The city trembled, and Antony's world unraveled. A report reached him. Cleopatra was dead. She had taken her life, they said. For years, she had been his anchor, his ruin, his salvation, and without her, what remained? He chose to die a Roman death, by his own hand, but the blow faltered. The blade cut deep, yet not enough. Still alive, still suffering. And then, the cruelest twist. Cleopatra was not dead. The report was a lie. She lived, waiting in her mausoleum. With failing breath, he was carried to her. There, in the arms of the last pharaoh, Mark Antony died. The man who would rival Caesar. The man who would challenge Rome. The man undone by love, pride, and fate. But Cleopatra's story was not finished. Not yet. Rome had won. Antony was dead. And Cleopatra, the last queen of Egypt, was now a prisoner of history. She had one weapon left, herself. She tried to charm him, to win him, to bend him, as she had bent Julius and Antony. But Octavian was not like them. He was colder, harder. His empire was not of passion, but of control. He declares,
"She will march in Rome's triumph, paraded, chained, humiliated."
That she could not bear. Not Cleopatra, not the daughter of pharaohs, not the living goddess of the Nile. She chose her end, on her terms. A small basket is brought in, covered, harmless looking. Inside, a serpent, an asp, faster than steel, quieter than fire. And so ended Cleopatra, the last pharaoh of Egypt, the queen who defied Rome, the woman who ensnared Caesar and Antony. She thought she was writing her legend. But Rome wrote the ending, and with her, the ancient world died. The queen was gone, but her children had their own fate. Caesarion, the boy she swore was Julius Caesar's true heir, 17 years old, he tried to flee. But Octavian's men caught him, and the boy king was quietly executed as Octavian was saying,
2 Caesars is 1 too many.
Alexander Helios and Ptolemy Philadelphus, sons of Cleopatra and Antony. They were paraded in Rome as trophies. And then vanished. No records, no graves, only silence. Cleopatra Selene, Antony and Cleopatra's only daughter, is the lone survivor. The last member of the Ptolemaic dynasty, posing no threat to his monarchy, Octavian lets her live. Octavia, younger sister of Octavian and Mark Antony's third wife, took custody of Cleopatra Selene. Despite knowing she's the daughter of her husband from another woman, she raised her as one of her own. Cleopatra Selene lived a modest life. Then she married a king, and became the queen of a kingdom far from Rome called Mauritania, carrying her mother's bloodline into another world. Rome thought it had erased Cleopatra, but in shadows, her legacy endured,